What's up, guys? How you doing? This is Philip Start. I've just come up the stairs, just made a wee cup of green tea in my Guinness mug, of course, from Ireland, and I've got my Effective Java book. So this is actually a new book from Joshua Block. I've read the first and second. I highly recommend you do this if you're a Java developer. It's not a product placement, by the way. I just really enjoy this book. Actually, I used to do Java puzzlers. I also recommend that. I used to do Java puzzlers years ago. Quite good if you want a hard problem to solve and you want to improve your problem solving and coding skills. But before I get started in my studies, I want to touch on a subject and make a little coding video for you guys, and that is going to be on a technology called Flyway. So, what is Flyway? How do I describe this? So Flyway is basically a database schema migration tool. So what does that really do? Why would we need that? So first of all, why would we need a migration management tool that's going to apply our schema updates? Why? Well, I've worked on systems in the past that have had many different environments. Development 1, development 2, test 1, test 2, integration environment, stress test environment, load test environment, production. Okay, big bad production, okay, if you think that way. But how do you know that your database schema, or how do you know which version of the schema is in each environment? You don't. If the tables are huge, there's loads of tables, there's loads of updates to them, loads of columns. You don't really. Everyone just kind of knows. Maybe you have a DBA manages this, one person locked in a room. We don't really like that, and there's not really much visibility. So what we can use is a tool called Flyway, and there's a free version, a community version of this, and what it'll actually do is manage and apply and update your schema updates. So that's your table updates. So how does it do that, and how can we make that? How can we implement that in Java? So it does it actually when your application. There's many ways you can do it. You can do it through command line. You can run through command line. You can run through Maven, and you can run through Java and a few other ways. But I'm going to talk about the way how you can run it in Java using the Java API. So first of all, we bring down the Flyway jar, put it in your class path, and then what we do is we create like a Flyway object. And what Flyway is going to do is in your database, the first time it starts, if it hasn't already run, it'll create a Flyway schema tracking table. And what that basically does is says which version of the schema are we on. So how does it get the version? Well, when we run Flyway, we tell it where the database schema files should live. So typically we have a project, like a Maven project, simple project with a resources folder. Inside that resources folder, we have db.migration, and inside that folder, we have our schema version. So we have version 1, the initial schema. It's basically creating all the tables and whatnot. Version 2 is maybe an altered table. Version 3 is another table. And this evolves over time as your application develops and there's new features required and new customer demand. So Flyway, when it starts up, creates a Flyway object, looks for where these schemas are. It'll then select, basically look at the database table and say, if that table exists, which version are we on? If it doesn't exist, create it. So say if we run it once and it doesn't exist, it'll create the table, and then it says there's one update, there's one schema migration here. It'll apply that, create all the database tables for us, create it all, that's cool, and then that's sweet. And then say 1 week later we need to add another table. We create version 2, create table and table name. We restart our application, or we can just run a migrate. If we have our own instance connected to the database, it'll then say, okay, we're on version 2, the database is on version 1. Let's apply schema update number 2. It applies that, and then the application instance starts. So this way, we don't need to throw about schema files to each other through emails, or if you're crazy, or maybe you want to manage them through GitHub. You don't need to manually apply. What you can do is just use this to basically manage and evolve your schema and apply your updates. And it's very easy to say, okay, which instance of the application or which version of the application is each environment, and if that version of the application is in that environment, then it will contain this schema version, which is another Maven project, and it contains these versions of the actual schema. So I hope it makes sense. I'm going to show you guys what it means here. I'm going to actually show you some code, type it for use, and I hope you enjoy it. So make sure you subscribe to this series if you like me talking about this stuff, making these videos. I really enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy the coding piece now. So check it out, guys. What's up guys, how you doing? This is Philip Start here, and in this part of the episode what I'm going to be doing is showing you a live coding example and how you can use the Flyway Java API to make your database migrations very simple. So the first thing you want to do is actually go ahead and go to the Flyway GitHub, and what we're going to do here is just see which version Flyway is on. So you can see it's on 5.06. You can go up and click on releases if you want, and that's the version we're going to be bringing down from Maven Central. So here you can also see which databases are supported and other third-party libraries and whatnot. So now we know the version, we're going to go to IntelliJ and we're going to actually bring down the jar. So I've already done this, a wee bit of boilerplate code. You want to bring down the Flyway core, this one here, and you also want to bring down the database driver that you're going to be using. So I'm using Postgres. Postgres is cool, I really enjoy it, I use it in production a lot. So that's my flavor of database. So first thing I'm going to do here is actually go ahead and start up the database. So I'm going to use Docker Compose. I'm going to launch up the database, and inside this database what I have is basically one database with a schema in it. So I'm going to launch dbviz, which is what I'm going to use to visualize this database with you. You can use whatever you want, it just so happens I'm using this at the moment, and of course you don't want to have drop that. That's nasty, never drop that. But anyway, we're going to go into the records and we're going to look inside here, and as you can see I have an accounts database, and inside this I have a table which is empty because we have no tables, and that's what we're going to be using Flyway for, to create and migrate our tables for us. So first thing we want to do in our code is go ahead and open up your main method. Now of course in your application you're not going to have a main method, so if this is some kind of application you want to do this maybe when your application is booting up at the very start. So what we want to do is actually create a new Flyway object. So you can go ahead and create this, and this is very simple. So you say Flyway, and what you want to do is first of all set the data source. So if you have a normal application, you probably have like a carry connection pool where you can pass in that data source, or maybe another connection pool provider, and that's how Flyway is going to connect to the database. But in our case I'm going to provide a URL, a string, a user, and a password because it's pretty simple for me. Because I've just started this locally. So this is my local Postgres JDBC URL. Username for me is just user, and the password I have is just password. So now once we have our Flyway data source, we're now able to connect the database. But what we want to do is set migrations. So what it is, set locations. So by default Flyway is going to look under the class path, and it's going to look for this package here, db.migration, and it's going to apply any of the files under there that conform to the standard format of Flyway migration, SQL files or DDLs. But if you have them in a different location, you can go ahead and set this location by using set locations. But we don't need to, because we're putting ours under db.migration, so we can just call it flyway.migrate. So now let's go ahead and actually run this. So I'm going to go ahead, right click, run main, and we'll see some output here. So successfully applied one migration. So if we flick back to the database, what I'm going to do is refresh the objects tree, and we'll see now we have two tables. We have our expected customer table. So if I go back and open up this, you'll see that we have create table command in here where we're creating a nice customers table. And if we go back into here, you'll see that I can open that in a new tab, and there we have no rows, we have the data there, we have the columns that we expect, and we also have a Flyway schema history table, which is the table that's going to maintain our schema migrations, so Flyway knows which version of the schema that we're on. So that's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and say, okay, we've been coding our application for a while and we need another table. Well, what we do is we come in here and we say, let's drop a version 2 schema in, and we're going to call it create, and we're going to call this people table. So we're going to say create people. Go ahead and click apply. And now what we do is we write people here, and instead of customer ID, let's write people ID. It should be person ID, but I really don't care at the moment for this little demo. We'll go ahead and make the primary key people ID. So save that. Let's go back to our app and run that again. and successfully applied one migration. So it applied another migration. So if we come here, this time we refresh the objects tree, we see now we have a people table, which is pretty cool because that's what we wanted. And if we go back into here and refresh, we'll see now that we have version 2. So we have 2 tables, and we've run Flyway twice, and it's now picked it up and it's run the SQL script that we have here. So this is how you can use Flyway to automate your database migrations. You don't need to manually log into the box anymore, and use that command line and run certain scripts, and you don't know what the heck the schema is like in your different environments. That can get very problematic, especially and error prone if you have different schemas in different environments and you don't know what's going on. And especially if you're sending SQL files and emails and all this nonsense, make sure you use source control to have your schema files, and use Flyway to ensure consistency and less errors throughout your codebase. So if you enjoyed this quick tutorial, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Go ahead and hit that button because I love making these videos. And the next video I'm going to produce is going to be on Spring Boot Flyway and how you can use Spring Boot to basically automate what I have just shown you. So I hope you guys have a good day. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.